feed them that sustainable food. It's also restaurant quality. So it's important so that we can help conserve these penguins who are endangered. Now we notice that you're getting in the water, so it looks like some of them are going to follow you there. Now Vicky is actually doing something really important while she feeds them. She's actually keeping track of how many fish each of them is eating, and not only how many, but of each kind. Now why do we do that, Vicky?
That is a good indicator of our, really? Okay. That's a good indicator of our birds' health. That one. And one of the first things that, I guess we're eating herring today. See, you never know. Sometimes we want herring, sometimes we want capelin. They get to pick. I'm just here to serve. But it can indicate a lot of things to us. One of the things is maybe that they are going into molt, so they'll ramp up their eating. If they're ladies, they might be getting ready to lay an egg, so they'll ramp up their eating. If they stop eating for no apparent reason, it might be an indicator that something's wrong, so we want to make sure we keep track of that.
That's right. So if they're eating kind of a lot, it might be an indication that they might be about to lay an egg or go through a molt. A molt is when they lose their outer layer of feathers. So penguins actually have two layers of feathers. They have an inner layer that's kind of soft and fuzzy, and an outer layer that they actually waterproof themselves. So if they're going to lose that outer layer of feathers, they're not going to be going in the water. So they'll eat a bit more to bulk up so they can get through that period of time. Now, if they're not eating, it might be an indication that they're not feeling well. So our biologists keep a close track of that so we can monitor their health. Now, a way that we can help with these African penguins and their conservation is by being mindful of what seafood we eat. And a way that you can do that is by being a part of the Seafood Watch program. You can download this on your app or smartphone, or you can get a card from me after the program. And this will help you make sustainable seafood choices, which is really important for these African penguins and also for other animals as well. Now, how's the feeding going, Vicky?
Great, except for this lady who keeps begging and then spitting her fish out.
Interesting. So they kind of do have a preference for fish. Now, if a fish tends to, or actually falls down to the bottom of the exhibit here, what happens to that fish?
Well, luckily we have an in-house cleanup crew. You guys look, you can see the sea stars down there. And if a fish does drop, and actually I'm going to be feeding the sea stars after this penguin feed, so I'll be throwing them some plants. And if you stick around for a few minutes, you'll see the sea stars looking it over to the food. And people don't think that sea stars can move to where you can perceive their movement, but they will.
They're actually pretty quick. I've definitely seen a fish fall to the bottom and then a sea star move over it by the end of the program, which is pretty amazing. And they have a pretty awesome process in which they eat that food. How does that work, Vicki?
Sea stars do a cool thing where they sort of get over their food and then, we're still talking about sea stars,
yes,
right?
That's right.
Okay, I wasn't sure. We're talking about penguin sea stars. And they kind of distend their belly over the food and digest and then pull it back in.
Yeah, so they kind of take their belly out of them and digest the food that way and then pull it back in. It's pretty interesting. Now, kind of back to those penguins. The penguins have a unique way in which they eat and digest their food too, isn't that right?
They do. So if you think about it, you're a penguin and you are in the ocean. You don't really have somebody to come over and hand you your fish. You would not make it oval because you're not getting the fish and I'm even throwing at you. But you have to have a really sharp beak so you can grab those fish, hang on to those fish. You'll see the bird will flip them up and swallow them head first. They actually have little hooks on either side of their tongues that orient backwards. They help push the fish down into their tummies, and they will pack them in like sardines, and then they will start digesting them immediately because you don't have time to do anything else when you're out there in the middle of the water.
That's right, and they actually eat a lot of fish. They can eat up to 14% of their body weight a day. That's about the equivalent of adult human eating about 80 quarter-pound hamburgers in one day. Quite a bit of food. And obviously they're kind of swimming around in the water, catching those fish. But are these animals fish? Are penguins fish? No, what kind of animals are they? They're birds. That's exactly right. They're birds that are adapted to swim really well. So they're kind of shaped in a way that they're hydrodynamic, meaning that they can move well in the water. Their wings help them to move around in the water, and those back feet kind of act as rudders and steer. But they don't breathe underwater. They actually hold their breath for about a minute or so. And about how deep down do they dive?
It's a good question because people think that a lot of times, not only that penguins live in snow and ice, but they can dive really deep and hold their breath super, super long. Some penguins can, so those penguins they made that movie about down in the ice floes, what's that called? March of the Penguins, yeah. So those guys eat a different food. They eat krill and they have to dive really deep. They have insane physiologies that allow them to hold their breath for 15 minutes or more. So these guys don't actually have to do that. So Sean was talking about the fishes they eat, the anchovies and the sardines. Those are not deep sea fishes. Those are actually shallow water fishes. So these birds don't have to go that deep or hold their breath too long.
That's right. So as we kind of watch them swimming around in the water, we might notice that some bubbles are coming off of their back. Does anybody see those bubbles? Does anybody know what that is? What do we think it is? Is it air? Yeah, it's actually air that's coming out from their feathers. So remember I mentioned that they have those 2 layers of feathers, and that's air that's escaping from those layers. Now, they actually waterproof their outer layer of feathers themselves. So you'll see them when they get out of the water, they'll kind of shake off and then they'll start preening. Now, how do they waterproof their feathers?
Mystery solved. We didn't want cake with today. So they have a little gland at the base of their tail, a little oil gland, and you'll see them kind of reaching back and some of that, and that's how they rub it onto their feathers, and that's how they waterproof themselves.
Yeah, it's very cool. So they're able to kind of take care of that waterproofing on their own. Now, we mentioned earlier how some of them might lay an egg. Do we have any new chicks here at the Academy?
We do have a new chick. His name is Parker. He is not